Hello, and welcome to Reads. That's short for really exciting and delightful stories. I'm your host, Nahjee Grant, and I'm a children's author. On this show, we explore children's stories and authors. Authors like you. So, as a matter of fact, you can appear on this show with me and read your story. You can write and illustrate a story no longer than 32 pages, and you can send it to 75 East Lancaster Avenue, Ulmore, PA 19003. Or you can send your story to lmtv at lowermarion.org. So you can be on TV with me and read your story to everyone. Now, doesn't that sound exciting? Well, speaking of stories, I have a special guest with me today. Julianna Abu from Evans Elementary School is here to read her story, The Lost Princess. So welcome, Julianna.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. So we had a short story contest a couple of months ago, and we had over 60 stories, right, that were submitted to us, and you were one of our lucky winners. We read your story. We all enjoyed it here at the studio. We wanted to have you come in and share your story to our broader audience here on the show. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna have you read your story, "The Lost Princess," by Julianna Abu.
Part 1, The Poor Village. Aspen sat right at her mother's side. Her mother looked so pale and fragile. A single teardrop traveled its way down Aspen's cold face. "Don't cry, my sweet child," her mother said, wiping away the tear that trickled down her face. "Now, child, here's some shins to buy some bread from Miss Susan. It should be enough for dinner." Aspen nodded and took the shins out of her mother's hand. She threw on her red cloak, then headed out the door. She walked down the streets of Igneous. She saw people on the streets begging for shins and food. But she herself was also poor and only had enough money for her and her mother. She made her way towards Susan's bakery, then headed in. The smell of fresh baked bread hit her nostrils as she proceeded to walk in. Miss Susan walked up to the counter fixing her eye patch. No one in the whole land of Igneous has seen her left eye. Some say it's not there anymore. "What would you like, dearie?" "A loaf of bread and some soup, please," she said, smoothing out her long, dirty dress. Miss Susan went in the back and prepared the meal she asked for. She came back with the loaf of bread and soup. 56 shillings, please," Miss Susan asked. Aspen dug in her pocket and made sure she had exactly 56 shillings. She then placed the shillings on the counter. Miss Susan counted the shillings, then placed her food in a basket and handed it to Aspen. "Thank you," Aspen said politely, then headed out the door. Aspen made her way back home. She opened the door to see her mother sitting on the bed. "I got the bread, and I also had enough shillings for some soup, too," Aspen said happily. She placed the basket on the table and took out the food one by one. Aspen got 2 bowls and equally separated the soup in each bowl. She broke a piece of the bread and left the remaining piece in the cabinet for tomorrow's supper. She helped her mother to the table and pushed her plate towards her mother. They both sat at the table enjoying their meal. "I'm going out," Aspen said as she washed up the dishes. "If you need me, give me the signal." Igneous was known for having mockingbirds. The signal was a whistling tone. "Okay, sweetie," her mother said, then drifted off to her dreamless sleep. Aspen pulled the covers over her mother, then walked out the door. Aspen headed into the woods. She heard there was a root beer bar, and she wanted to test it out. She headed into the bar. There were a lot of wealthy people here. Guys having conversations about chugging down a pinful of root beer, and girls just there to flirt with the guys. Aspen walked over to the bar stool. "What would you like today, ma'am?" a handsome tall man said to Aspen. "A pint of root beer, please." "Sure thing," he said, pouring the foamy substance in the glass. 10 shillings, please." She rummaged through her pockets, forgetting she already spent all of her shillings on supper. "I'm sorry, I don't have enough," she said, hanging her head low, thinking she would get yelled at. "Don't worry, sweetheart, it's on the house," he said, pushing the root beer towards Aspen. "How could I ever repay you?" Aspen said. "By letting me be in your presence," he said, smiling widely. Her cheeks flushed red. "You really are charming, aren't you?" "I guess that's just part of my personality," he said, moving the stool a little bit closer to Aspen. "Anyways, what's your name?" Aspen said, taking a sip of the root beer. Daniel, yours? Aspen, she said, slightly smiling. You have a little foam in your nose, Aspen said with a slight, Daniel said with a slight smirk. Where? Aspen said frantically while trying to wipe off the foam. Daniel grabbed the napkin and wiped the foam off of Aspen's nose. Thanks, Aspen said, quite embarrassed. Time passed as they both keep talking. Then Aspen heard the whistling tone. I got to go, Aspen said, getting off the stool. Why? Daniel said, running after her. I can't explain right now, and with that, Aspen ran out the door, leaving a confused Daniel. Aspen ran through the woods, branches sticking her in different areas. She didn't care, she just needed to make sure her mother was okay. After running for a couple of minutes, she finally made it home and swung open the door. Mother, are you alright? Aspen said, shutting the door behind her. Yes, sweetie, I just need to talk to you about something. What is it? Aspen said, sitting beside her mother. As you know, I'm very sick and we need money dearly, Aspen nodded, invested in the conversation. That's why you're going to take over my sewing job. How? I don't even know how to sew, Aspen said, slightly raising her voice in shock. That's why I asked my friend's son Daniel to help you sew. Daniel, that name sounded awfully familiar. No, it can't be. There's a lot of people named Daniel in the land of ignorance, she thought to herself. Okay. You should get some rest. You have a really busy day tomorrow. Okay, Aspen said, soon enough falling asleep next to her mother. Part 2, the new owner. The sunlight shined through Aspen's small window. Was it time already? Was she going to take over her mom's sewing job already? Would she finally not be poor anymore? Excited, Aspen jumped out of bed and put on a white ruffled skirt and long pink shirt. She threw on her leather boots and red cloak. She walked out the door and made her way to the tailor shop. Aspen was so excited she couldn't contain her happiness. Finally, after squealing like a little girl, she made it at her mom's tailor shop. She pushed open the door and saw a bunch of sewing supplies. There was fabric, needles, etc. Aspen walked towards the waiting table where the thread and needle was. She patiently waited for Daniel to walk through the door to help her sew. Daniel came and rushed in the room. He gave her a small gasp. Aspen. Daniel, Aspen said faintly, whispered. I guess this was the Daniel mother was talking about. So, what do you need to sue for? Daniel asked, pulling up a chair next to Aspen. It's for my mother. She used to sue and got very sick. So I have to take over for her so we can get enough money. Aspen was trying to hold back the tears that were forcing to come out. Oh, Daniel hummed his hello for a while. It was nothing but silence. Tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Anyways, I bought a slightly ripped shirt for you to sew, Daniel said, placing the ripped pink shirt in front of Aspen so she could examine it. Where did you get this from? Aspen said, picking up this shirt and inhaling the scent. It smelled freshly washed. From my mother. She wanted to get it sewn but never had enough money to. Oh, Aspen said, picking the pink thread and needle. She poked the needle through the ripped area and then pulled the needle out. She then began to repeat this process. At the last minute, Aspen accidentally pokes the needle through her index finger. Ouch, Aspen said, moving from the freshly new shirt so blood won't drip on it. Don't worry, Aspen, Daniel said as he grabbed the first aid kit. Daniel got the needle out of Aspen's finger, then proceeded to pet the wounded area with a cotton ball and alcohol. He got the band-aid and wrapped it around Aspen's finger. You were pretty good for your first time sewing. Yeah, sometimes I will come and watch my mom sew for other people. How much do you want it for? Daniel asked. Aspen gasped. You're willing to give me money? Of course, Daniel said, rummaging in his pocket for money. He then pulled out exactly 100 golden shins. He then placed the shins in her hand and folded her hair. She gasped in delight. This is so much money, Daniel. You earned it, Aspen, he said, smiling, then taking the freshly sewed shirt before heading out. Aspen danced around in happiness. After a while, she turned the open sign to close and headed her way back home. As she opened the door, she saw two guards standing in the living room. Her mother was surprisingly standing up, but all the color strained from her face. She looked terrified. Before her mother could get the sentence off her tongue, in a swift movement, the guards picked up Aspen by her arms and carried her outside to the carriage. "Let me go," Aspen yelled, pounding her tiny fists on both their backs. But it seemed to have no effect on them. Aspen was thrown into the carriage. "Where are we going?" Aspen yelled at the guards. "That information is classified." "I must know," she said, raising her voice again. "Look," the guard said with more of an annoyed tone. "You'll know when we get there." Aspen slumped in the red velvet cushion. "Is this how our life is going to be now?" A single teardrop fell down her face. "I didn't even get to say goodbye to Daniel," she said before dozing off. She woke up, blinded by the sunlight. After been driving throughout the night, she slightly straightened up her posture, staring out the window. She saw a huge royal blue castle. Why were they at a castle? Oh, how she had so much questions, yet she wouldn't get an answer. The carriage door opened. After you, Princess Aspen." "Oh, you're mistaken. I'm no princess, just plain old Aspen," she said, giving a cheeky smile. The guard gave her a curt smile. "Oh, you just wait," the guard mumbled under his breath. The door pushed open. It was all so magical, glass hanging from the ceiling. It was like a dream come true. She looked straight ahead. She saw a lady with a shiny silver crown on her head. Next to her was another guard and a dressed-well gentleman. Aspen was so confused to why she was here, and why is she being called so-called princess, and why is she standing in front of a queen in a castle? She had a list of questions, but she doubted she would get answers. "Hello, daughter," Aspen, guessing was the queen said with a large grin. "Daughter," Aspen yelped. "It's been a long time, my dear. I'm not your daughter. My real mother's in the village of Igneous. If we're even still in Igneous. Sweetie, you don't understand. Come and I'll explain everything to you." Her so-called mother got off her throne, intertwined her hand with Aspen, and headed up the majestic velvet red stairs. It took them a while, but eventually they made it into a small bedroom. "Aspen, my dear, you are in fact a princess." The end of book.
The end. Well, you did a wonderful job. I thought the book was very creative and well written, and beautiful illustrations between you and your group of friends and family who helped you with the illustrations. I think you should continue to use your creativity and your skills to change the world one day. And I think you will. I think it starts today with things like this. Well, it's great to speak with you, Julianna. So thank you for sharing your story with us. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll read another story and tell you more about how you can be on TV and read your story that you wrote. Don't go away. Hello, and welcome to Reads. That's short for really exciting and delightful stories. And I'm your host, Nahjee Grant. And I'm a children's author. On this show, we explore children's stories and authors. Authors like you. So, as a matter of fact, you can appear on this show with me and read your story. You can write and illustrate a story no longer than 32 pages, and you can send it to 75 East Lancaster Avenue, Ardmore, PA. Or you can send your story to lmtv@lowermarion.org. So you can be on TV with me and read your story to everyone. And doesn't that sound exciting? Well, speaking of stories, I have a special guest with me today. Riya Kharode from Gladwin Montessori is here to read her story, Layla. Welcome, Riya.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So we had a short story contest a couple of months ago.
Yes.
And we had over 60 submissions for the short story contest. And like I shared with you before we started, and you were one of our winners. All right, you were actually our first winner, right? But actually you're the last to be recorded. Well, last but not least, right? So happy to have you come on. And I want you to share your story to a broader audience. But before we do, tell me a little bit about how you came with the idea for your short story.
Well, so Layla is actually a real person. I met her in kindergarten, and she's actually one of my best friends. and I decided that I wanted to write a story about her because, I mean, you know, we hang out so much and we're just so close that, I mean, it just kind of occurred to me as second nature to write a story about her.
Interesting. So most of my books are based off of my real life and my experiences.
Yes,
So I definitely
yes.
understand where you're coming from with that.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to write your story?
Oh, actually, not very long. I wrote the first chapter as a writing diagnostic at the around December or January, and my teacher told me there's a writing contest, and she showed it to me, and I said I want to enter this. So I continued writing it. Took me about a couple weeks to write the whole thing, very short, and then it was done, and then I sent it off,
And look where your effort led you. Led you on the show. You're a winner. You are a winner. So also we need to ask you before we begin, so you go to Gladwin, Montessori. Which one of some of your favorite subjects in school?
My favorite subjects are reading, writing, and spelling. Those are just my favorites.
Reading, writing, spelling.
Yep.
Those are your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So I share when I have my author presentations, when I go to different schools, that when I was in elementary school, my favorite was writing, drawing, and gym.
Cool.
Those are my favorite three. So we got 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a reader. So do you have an idea of what you want to do when you get older?
Definitely. I want to be an author because I've been writing since I was really little. Even when I was kindergarten, my stories were trash, but I still wrote, and I've been like drawn since I was really young, and I just love the idea of, you know, being able to read your own story, because when you love reading so much, it just means a lot.
And what's one of your favorite books?
My favorite, I haven't read the full Little Women, but I really like the junior classical edition. I tend to like classics and big books. I read big books in short amounts of time.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
Interesting. Well, without further ado, I will let you read your story, Layla.
Thank you. Okay. This book is dedicated to Layla, the most understanding friend anyone could ever want. Thank you, Layla, for being empathetic, loving, and caring. Prologue. I was trembling in bed. It was late at night, long after everyone had gone to sleep. I was nervous for school. I had no friends. I didn't even know the teachers. How was I supposed to make it through one entire year of school? Layla, Chapter 1. I really didn't want to go to school. My mind was going back and forth between thoughts, worries, and daydreams. But suddenly, those thoughts became hope, joy, and confidence. I am not a quitter, I thought. The next morning, I awoke bright and cheerful. My teeth gleamed in the early fall sunlight. Tomorrow, I would return to Gladwin Montessori. I loved the school, but I wanted to go, but something made me hesitate. Chapter 2. Gloomy mornings are the worst ones to start school, I thought as I spooned porridge into my mouth. My hands already felt heavy. I ate even though I wasn't hungry. As I climbed into the car, my sister Nahjee gave me a hand and helped me into my seat so that I wouldn't get soaked in the rain. "You'll do great," she said. I gave her a weak smile and buckled myself in. The ride to school was only 8 minutes long, which made me even more nervous. "Bye," my mom said. Nothing seemed to be going okay. I started walking towards the building. As I walked into the classroom, I looked around. The first person I saw had silky, dark brown hair, and beneath her long eyelashes, her misty brown eyes shone with truth and purity. There she is, I thought. She's the one who will bring out my true personality. Just then, a woman with short, dark hair and dimpled cheeks rushed forward and said, "Hello, you must be Riya. It's a pleasure to have you in our class. Come here a minute. There's someone I want you to meet." "Okay," I said. I followed her to where the pretty girl sat. "Oh, by the way, I'm Miss Mary," the dimpled woman told me. "This is Layla. Layla, this is Riya. I'm sure you two will be great friends. I'll be around." With that, the two of us were left alone. I quickly looked down at my new silver sandals. My cheeks turned a faint scarlet. "Hi," I muttered. Right then, I noticed that she was smiling. At least it looked like it. Before I knew it, her hand was in mine, and she was breathing softly in my ear. I know you're nervous. You're going to be fine. I squeezed her hand gratefully. As I spent more time with Layla, my worries about having no friends seemed to go away. But even though my worries were going away, it didn't mean they wouldn't come back. The next day, I was putting something in my work drawer when Benjamin burst out laughing at the very sight of me. "Is your real name Diarrhea?" he rudely sputtered out in front of my classmates, and just like that, my heart dropped. My whole life, I loved my name, but someone making fun of it is making my heart drop. This question seemed to be tearing me apart like a fierce storm escaping me. I froze with my hand still on the drawer, my face as white as chalk. My eyes welled up and tears started pouring down my cheeks as the storm raged on. I staggered toward the door, my ears full of Layla's shrieks, shouts, and sobs. Wait a minute, is she crying? I thought. I fell to the ground. I was moved and I was shocked. Why had sorrow overpowered me? The door opened with a faint creak. Layla was in a miserable state. Her hair was a mess, her face red from crying, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She knelt down beside me. All I did was throw my arms around her and cry. The moment we saw each other, we knew. We were meant to be together. We were more than friends. We couldn't break apart. And I learned that eternal love is unbreakable. The end.
The end. That was a wonderful story.
Thank you.
When you submitted it, I read it, and also some of the other producers read it. We all loved it. Want to have you come in and share it to a broader audience. So I thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. And the sky's the limit for you. All right, you're a star in the making.
Thank you so much.
All right, so continue writing, continue reading, continue to focus on your education.
Yep.
All right, and in another 20 years when you're a famous author, just remember this day.
Yep.
All right, so I'll remember this day for a long time as well, so thank you for coming. And thank you for sharing with us. So how would you like to read your story with me right here on TV? You can write and illustrate a story no longer than 32 pages, and you can send it to 75 East Lancaster Avenue, Ardmore, PA, 19003. Or you can send your story to lmtv@lowellmarion.org. So you can be on TV with me and read your story to everyone. Doesn't that sound exciting? Until next time, keep writing and reading really exciting and delightful stories.